Welcome everyone to the third day of Hangout Heroes, and today we have a hero, the hero in the house, Jon Carlton. And to introduce him, because I just read the cover of his book and it's amazing, and I can't say that because it's going to come out really, really wrong. Jon Benson.
I don't know why you think that would come out really, really wrong, but Jon is. I mean, if I was to say Jon is the author of the Entrepreneur's Guide to Getting His Shit Together, that's the name of the book. It's on the cover, if you don't believe me. That would be a really bad introduction for Jon Carlton. He's one of the living legends of copywriting. He's written more successful letters than just about anyone I can think of that's living at the moment. He's a dinosaur, of course, you know. But he's been one of my great inspirations. Thank you so much. Yeah, he's the guy behind the infamous one-legged golfer. If you've seen that ad, if you haven't or heard about it, it's one of the most studied letters of all time, and just a genuinely good guy. Jon, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Always happy to hang out with you, John.
Yeah, it's all too infrequent, man. We see each other a couple times a year at best. So thanks for coming on.
I can't believe you went out drinking last night without me.
Well, yeah. It's like I just woke up like 3 minutes ago. Oh,
well,
God.
at least you didn't wake up, naked on a bus somewhere in Iowa. So
No, I didn't. And yeah, if we can constitute a glass of wine or two for a night of drinking. Yeah, it was. Oh man, I did have a weird thing though. It's like not to dive into weird subjects here, but weird thing is that I had this weird hard time sleeping last night, which is really rare for me. So I kept getting up in the middle. I thinking, okay, I got up and it's like this daylight savings time that should totally. Why is this still a thing? Like I don't understand why this is still a thing. Well, I would get up and it would be dark. I thought, okay, well it's time to get up. It's probably 6, and I look at my clock, my phone. It's like 2. I'm like, what the hell? It's like I try to go back to sleep. Okay, now it's time to get up. It's 4. I'm like, So yeah, it was. I'm like, who knows? So anyway, we're gonna talk about some cool stuff. We're gonna drill Jon on benefits and on bullets and cool stuff like that. I call this part of my writing the dynamic benefit formula. Jon calls it probably something totally different. Gun to the head persuasion.
No, I called it the Benson formula way before I met you. It was just that's what we referred it to.
Well, there you go. There you go. I just plagiarized him without knowing it. This is like happens all the time in this business. So yeah, we're gonna like dive into some really cool stuff. And I think that having benefits in VSLs get overlooked because VSLs are slide driven. So on a sales page, bullets and benefits stand out like a sore thumb. You can see the check boxes and all that stuff, and the actual real bullets that you see. But on a VSL, you don't really see a lot of that. And yeah. I like to put them in there in basically instead of having a literal bullet, you would just have a slide that would go by really quick, a slide that would go by really quick, etc. So we're going to talk about how Jon creates benefits, because one of the coolest things I ever heard Jon say was, I actually, whenever I get stuck on writing a letter, or sometimes even when you don't, you actually start with the benefits. Is that correct?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff I used to work on, a client would come to me with a product. A lot of that came from when I was working with the largest direct mailers on the planet, which would be like Rodale and Phillips and Agora and things like that. And they would often sell books or newsletters or written stuff. So that was easy for me to be able to break down a book that I'm going to sell, for example, as opposed to a product. I would read the book and pull out, as I read the book, I destroyed it, marking it all up, and pull out the items that would later be used as bullets. So my first thing is to bulletize the whole thing. That process brought me over to when I was dealing with clients selling services or anything else, from selling a seminar to selling fancy rocks on rings and stuff like that. It just break everything down into bullets, so that within the bullets you're going to find your hook, you're going to find often your headline, you're going to find a lot of the stuff. And I would write 20 pages of bullets and wind up using a tenth of that. So you just generate this salesmanship stuff as you go. So for me, all the magic was in bullets once you figured out how to write a good bullet, of course.
So we're going to talk about how to write a good bullet in just a second, but first we have our first quiz of the day. We've been doing these quizzes. We have 3 quizzes that we have people to fill in their answers into the chat window. So Yafat, can you pull up the first one?
Yes. So guys, this is really, really awesome. it will get you starting to think about your sales letter, your VSL. So as you start thinking about it, think, what is the number one thing that could kill your online sales? One, A, I do not have enough traffic to my sales page. I think this came up yesterday a lot, right, Jon? B, I do not have a product or service to sell. Or C, I do not have a benefit-driven, content-rich VSL. So A, B, or C, what is the number one thing killing your online sales? A, I don't have enough traffic to my sales page. I don't have a product or a service to sell. Or I don't have a benefit-driven, content-rich VSL. So we're going to leave it up for a second, and then we're going to come back to this in about 5 minutes after you guys start commenting A, B, or C, and why. Let us know, why do you think that's the answer?
Another trick question, by the way. Another trick question. I gave out, so I think they were all trick questions yesterday. So, yeah, trick question. So as you guys are answering that, let's get back into basically, how do you go about writing a bullet, man? What's your bullet to the head strategy?
Well, it's kind of a what's interesting is when you one of the keys to living well and also learning how to sell was breaking things down. So you take an early thing I figured out was that any problem can be figured out. And I kind of had that epiphany when I read about, some dirt marijuana farmer in South America getting through the entire U.S. military, in a rowboat, just finding a way to beat the odds and get through anything. And it just dawned on me, anything can be figured out. There's an answer to anything. You may not like the answer, but by breaking it down into easily chewable parts, even the biggest problem in your life can be broken down into different segments that you start to deal with. So instead of just taking on, why am I unhappy, you start to break it down. Well, I don't have enough money, I don't like the person I'm living with, whatever. And then those can be broken down. And that is actually the process of bulletizing stuff. That's actually breaking down the larger picture into bite-sized chunks. And then adding what I call the triumvirate of writing, which is understanding language at a better level, understanding behavioral psychology, or however you want to call it, and injecting salesmanship. So for me, the problem was how to sell something, how to become an effective copywriter. Because when I first became a freelance copywriter, I was not necessarily having to sell. I was working for the large agencies down in Los Angeles. And even though they called themselves direct response agencies, they weren't really using direct response. They were softballing everything. So it was like for insurance companies and things who were afraid of hard-hitting stuff. So I didn't get into that until I started working more with entrepreneurs or with the large mailers who used real direct response stuff. Again, like Rodeo, Agora, things like that. Mm-hmm. And so when I started figuring out what this, just real briefly, let me explain that triumvirate thing. The language is just, as a writer, get better at language. Read better stuff. You don't have to read fancy stuff. And I'm not an academic kind of guy. I use a lot of slang. And the slang should all be market specific, by the way. If you're going to use slang to a certain market, make sure they're using the slang. I use inside words, things like that. But read stuff like the New Yorker, which is a great, it was one of the first publications, mainstream publications, to use bad words, to allow what were once censored or forbidden subjects. And they just speak very matter-of-factly. So it's like a lot of smart people in a room talking about smart things. And then behavioral psych, you don't need to go back to school. You can study anything. Just understand how people actually think and how they actually react to things and what they do. Not what they say they'll do, but what they actually do. A good salesman has had the experience, and I was mentored by, door-to-door salesmen. Albert and Jay Abraham sold door-to-door. So they're looking face-to-face with somebody, and they would see somebody say, yeah, I'll buy that, and then turn around, slam the door in their face. Metaphorically, that's what you're doing when you're writing copy, is you're dealing with one, it's just you and one person reading or listening to whatever you've written in a VSL. and you have to understand, how to address their needs, their objections, their problems with you, with what's going on, all of that stuff. And then the basic salesmanship that you inject is, getting somebody to a point where they say, hey, that's a pretty cool product or service you got there, and I think someday down the line when I really need it, I think I'll buy that. That's an easy level to get to, but that don't put money in your account. The next level up from that is closing the deal, where they don't say, that's pretty good and I think someday I'll get it. They say, shut up, give me the number, and I'm calling right now. And within minutes they have a credit card smoking from being overused, and you've completed that part of the transaction. And then there's fulfillment, which copywriters don't have to worry about. So.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
And then channeling all that down into bullets. All of my bullets had to cook, which meant that the mistake most people make with bullets is they do simple feature benefit. It's a really fast car. It's got a 360, semi obliterative vortex engine. But you don't break it down into salesmanship. Each bullet should be able to get somebody really excited about moving further into the sales process. So they're not passive things that just kind of blow by. It's like you're pointing things out. I figured out a long time ago in direct mail that I would sell things based on one bullet often, and you never can predict which bullet it's going to be, because bullets give you a chance to go after the people who have different learning styles, who have different decision-making processes, who have different ways of approaching making a decision or being persuaded. So a bullet lets you cover all of these different angles. So you can't predict which bullet may do it, but a single bullet can often be the thing that kicks somebody over the edge into actually making that decision to buy or to engage. Does that make sense?
Total. And yeah, I use this. If you think in terms of VSLs, it's the same thing with one single slide. Can often be the one thing that will push somebody over the edge. Especially one of our tips that we talked about yesterday with Vin DiCarlo is in the Q&A section of your VSL, which is at the very end of the VSL. A lot of people just blow that off, and they just think, oh, the Q&A sounds like, how fast will I get results, and when will the product be delivered? And we use this as a way to just sell like crazy. I mean, it's like we'll use this as a way to drive like 20 different bullets, right? And we call bullets just slides, but just boom, 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 one after the other. And I brought up an example from I was working with Andrea yesterday on her sales page that she's doing. She's writing. She's actually gone through some courses in writing her own sales copy, and she's just really good email writer. I mean, she writes really connects with her audience really well with emails. And as you know, sales pages and emails, really totally different writing gigs. And so I said, I want to see you become more self-sufficient in this if you want to do it. And she's like, yeah, give me the courses. And she's just kind of a rabid learner. And so she sent over what the letter started off really great, and of course I just tweaked a few things here and there because that's what we do, right? Writing is rewriting, and that's what you taught. One of the things you taught me is like we were sitting down, you hammered that into my head. Writing is rewriting. All the great writers rewrite things over and over and over again. And so this was the very first rewrite, and I was actually going to show this 3 of these bullets that I briefly rewrote for Andrea because it's very common I see this all the time in people that are actually have gone through copywriting for years, and they still do these bullets that are kind of like they're descriptive, but they're not dramatic. There's nothing about them that gives you this really like, oh, that one thing, I'd buy it for that one thing. And so my thing is exactly what John's saying. You want to write your benefits and your bullets in a way to say, how can I word this in a way where it would sound like if they just had that would be enough. That would totally sell them on the course.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, each one has to stand on its own. Yeah.
Exactly. So I was going to share my screen. It's not pretty, but meaning that because I have documents overlapping each other. But if you guys will give me a second, I will do this. I had not planned to do this, but I thought when John said what he said, I thought it'd be fantastic to do this. So and by the way, for anyone listening, anyone watching that wants to do something in the fitness world, Andrea is about to do this really awesome hangout coaching thing with guess who? Say something, you fat.
I was looking for the mute, and I was like, "Where's the drum roll?" Dum, da, 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 da.
That's right. So yeah, they're excited about it. I'm excited about it. So in case anyone out there is listening, because I'm sure no one out there it needs to lose weight. No one out there, right? Andrea is a great coach, and so she's doing this coaching thing. So I want to show you the top three bullets here. And they sound fine when you read them. So if you go back over here, how to diet, how to exercise, and how to find time in yourself for your busy life. Now, this is not knocking on Andrea in the least. This is me only saying, let me copyright this a little bit. But now we use this a little bit differently. And what I wanted her to do is like less of a bullet, because bullets are usually like they can start with verbs. I love starting bullets with verbs like obliterate, smash, break through, kind of like an intense like drama kind of thing. But also in this, because it was toward the end of the sales letter, these are more slides. So there's benefits, and then there's benefits and bullets. This is sort of a benefit-driven bullet. Does that make sense? It's like a kind of a bullefit.
Yeah.
This is a bullefit, all right? So this one right here is like, I changed how to diet to a new approach to eating that removes the word diet from your vocabulary to discover my 5 baby simple food tweaks that will strip fat off in just days. Now that's something like, what are those 5 simple tweaks? I just have to know what those are, right? I just know her stuff, so I'm able to write this. So instead of how to exercise, because exercise is such a really dirty word sometimes, a breakthrough way of moving that replaces most traditional exercises will have you practically dancing your way to a slimmer you. So you see the drama that I'm building, because the way that Andrea chooses to exercise most of the time, not all the time, but she's got this really cool workout system where it's a lot of almost dancey kind of stuff. It's fun, there's choreographed, it's in home and stuff like that. And then the final one is, because this is really cool, how to find time for yourself in your busy life. And I thought that one was like, that's not something you hear a lot about in weight loss, but that's really cool. So my 3 hidden hours found system, I just named it. I just came up with a name for it. I guarantees you 3 extra hours in your day. And so those are all much more juicy. And I could have gone through the whole list, but she got the point from there, and she's writing them herself, which is the whole point. But so I'm saying this. I hope that's okay, Andrea. If you're watching this, I hope it's cool that I share this. But I just thought that this was a perfect example of what we're talking about today, Jon. So what do you think?
Yeah, you're actually using language and a bit of slang, and naming things is a great tactic that kind of defines the better copywriters from the newbies or the wannabes. Is when you're having trouble describing something, just name it, and use action verbs, use power words, use things that trigger emotional responses in people. Relying on the word diet to carry any kind of weight in your piece is a huge mistake, because diet is not a power word. Even losing weight is not. I know I've written a lot in the fitness industry. I had clients who were bodybuilders and also just the fitness field, and find out what the psychological barriers are to people actually getting where they're going. You're not talking to people who already have this figured out. You're talking to people who are looking to you to get some kind of answer, and you're helping them break it down inside their own head and giving them language to use at that point. So they may have only used the word diet up to that point for themselves. Now you're giving them other things to use, and you control that. You are the guy controlling how they think about that. So you don't even need to think about it very carefully. Jon, you just ripped that off and came up with some cool descriptive phrases, and this is the title. And it's the title because you say it's the title. So, exactly. I can't even count how many times offhand comments I made became headlines of books later and things. It's part of the descriptive process that helps the unconscious part of the prospect's brain frame everything, so they and whether or not they're getting closer to actually buying something or not is irrelevant at that time. What you're doing is helping them get to a point where you're talking on the same level. You're talking about common goals. You're talking about getting somewhere together, and you're just putting it into words. That's the only difference. A lot of people are good at that face-to-face, talking, speaking it out. Then they sit down and start trying to write, and they get all frozen up because you have, it's a slower process. It's a more thoughtful process, and you get all scared about that. So, you know, that's why when I dealt with real salesmen, it didn't matter if they could write or not. We just record them and then transcribe the recording, and often that took us 90% of the way towards having a really good sales letter. So, of course, those face-to-face salesmen are getting rarer and rarer in life.
They are indeed. Phone salesmen, however, are not, and it's the same kind of vibe. Here's what's very interesting about what we're talking about here. If you guys, I'll bring the screen back up if you need it. Guys, comment if you need it or not. If you don't need it, because it was pretty simple. We had how to diet, how to exercise, and how to find time were the 3 how-tos in there, and all I did with this was I used a couple of power words. One was a simple power word, new. That's been used a billion times, but it was okay. I just to show how simple you could. New always works. New just is one of those words. It just kind of keeps working. Next one was breakthrough, and the next one was system. Those were all used within the first 5 words of the bullet benefit or the bullet or whatever you want to call it. That these slides became. And this will actually be a page on a sales page, so it will actually be a literal bullet. But the point is that each one of those had something unique inside of them. So each benefit, each bullet, you want to look for something unique, even if you have to name it. I call it trademarking in 3X. In the accelerator course, you'll hear me talk about trademarking things. So oftentimes we'll put like TM on the words and then go get the TM later. You know, like for example, changing the word diet to food tweaks. I mean, just little bitty things like that. Someone is that is struggling with dieting. They hate the word diet, right? So what if you say, well, I just want to have you give a little food tweak, a tweak here and there to what your daily eating plan looks like that strips off fat and just, okay, well, no, that sounds totally different, right? It's really not different except in the sense that I just happen to know that Andrea doesn't. She has a way of teaching this stuff that you don't diet, like you don't count calories and all that. But the point is that you want to look at this as a benefit, every slide, every benefit, everything should have something that is a so what's in it for me test. So like if you're reading through a paragraph of your copy, and John, I want to get your feedback on this, and then we'll get the answers to our first quiz. My opinion is when you're reading through the paragraphs of your copy, if there's a paragraph that doesn't say, any paragraph that doesn't say, what is the benefit to me in that paragraph, you've got a problem.
Yeah, we call those tangents mostly. One of the worst things you can do as a copywriter, one of the easiest things to do, and one of the most common things that even experienced veteran copywriters do is they just wander down a rabbit hole. They go off and they start talking about something that they like, and you just either in editing or at that point, you need to stop yourself and back up and remember, it's not about you. You know, you are the writer, you are the translator, but you are not part of the process. You are a guy who is framing this. You're helping the prospect. So of course this all leads back to you better understand what the prospect's needs, fears, goals, desires, nightmares, what's keeping them up at night. You better understand all of that, not what you think about all of this, but what the prospect does, because it's always going to come back to them. So
always. Yeah. Cool. Yvette, you want to pull in the answers here? We got some answers.
Yeah. I want to show you guys again the question because John, like you said, it was a trick question. We get so many answers. So the question was what is the #1 thing killing your online sales? Is it A, I don't have enough traffic to my sales page, B, I don't have a product or a service to sell, or C, I don't have a benefit-driven, content-rich VSL? So let's see what people said. Peter Weiser said C. Enrique said all of them. Carlos Mesa actually put them in order: C, then A, then B.
Oh.
Brad said, Brad Lloyd said C. Andrea said, I know, C. Because when you have
it sounds like exactly how she would say it too. It really does. Yes.
Well, she did it in a very nice way. She first said, I know, C, and then she explained why.
I know, yes. That's
she said, when you have a great VSL, people want to send you traffic. True. Kevin said all of them. Tom Bell said the offer doesn't convert visitors to money, so probably C. Then someone said, okay, maybe B is the killer. Bahimi said, well, B if nothing ever has been generated. However, C, because anyone can record a webinar and make it a product. So like you said.
Good answer. Guess what? Okay, so Bahimi, and I believe it was Carlos, was that correct? Had the closest answers to that.
Oh, the CAD?
Yes, it's CAD. It's CAB, cab. So that was a trick question. I apologize for you guys because I did not say C, A, or B. You know, I didn't do that because hey, I went to a real university where they had hard questions where they didn't give you that kind of stuff. So I'm just kidding. It's actually C, A, and B. And so let's go back to the first one, Yafat, so I can show over what I'm talking about. Yeah. So the number one thing that you need that is killing your sales online, even before a product or a service, because guess what? You can actually have a product or a service that doesn't exist and have a video sales letter sell it. Because I know, because we do it all the time. So the number one thing is that you don't have a really strong sales page or video sales letter. That's closely followed by, let's go back to I can only see myself, or I can actually see John talking. So so I will click over here so I can look at the screen. So that is followed by, I don't have enough traffic. Because once you have that benefit-driven content-rich VSL and you have traffic, you're really, really good. Notice B is the last one. It's totally true because you don't have to have your own product or service. You can drive traffic to an affiliate page that we talked about yesterday, drive to a pre-sale page that you've written that pre-sells and pre-frames the customer to where they go to their current page, whether it's a video sales letter, sales page, webinar, or whatever it is. You've got a huge third-party endorsement going in, and that's one of the strategies that we teach in 3X. Okay, next questions. Let's go through them, Yafat.
Yes, so we want to actually go through this so that we can let you speak with Jon Carlton. So let's do this, guys. In terms of the sales copy, what is a benefit? Is it A, something that explains why your product or service is superior? B, a customer-focused statement pertaining to the experience they will receive, either from relief of pain or gain of pleasure upon purchasing your product or service? Or C, a statement of the facts pertaining to why your product or service adds value. What is a benefit? Something that explains why your product or service is superior, a customer-focused statement pertaining to the experience that they will receive, either from relief of pain or gain of pleasure upon purchasing your product or service, or C, a statement of the facts pertaining to why your product or service adds value. That is also a university-generated question.
I put on my professor's hat for this one, folks. But this is not a trick question. There's actually one correct answer. There's one best answer. I'll put it that way. So find the best answer. All right, let's bring some people on, man. Let's chat with John.
You want to do that? Okay. Then we will share the link for you guys to join us in 2 minutes. Just refresh the page. The link below the video will become active. Make sure you mute yourself before you come in, and make sure that you do have a question. If you don't have a question, keep watching us like you do right now, and just let us know in the comments how much you love us.
Exactly. And pardon me while I suck on the throat lounges because my voice.
Actually, while telling us how much they love us, speaking of which, I want you to address this comment. Catherine Gordon said, I have a product, photos, testimonials, benefits, a list, I am generating sales. What I don't have is the technical skill to create the VSL. Wait, we know the answer. What is the next step for someone who wants to move from using traditional sales copy to using a VSL to sell a product on ClickBank? And the answer is...
Are you serious?
I'm serious. I'm like, why did you write off this video? You see, there's like, just get that.
Okay. Look right to the right of your screen, and you'll see try the accelerator for $397. Yeah. So my course, John, I'll risk everything and bring John on to talk about it. But the course that we teach is the definitive course on video sales letters. I created video sales letters, so I have a little bit of things to say about that. And certainly the style that's been used over since 2009 to do about $1 billion in business for our clients and over $12 billion for people around the world that we know of. That's that we know of. So yeah, so it's the definitive course on that, but it's also the software that actually walks you through step by step how to do it. And as you're going and as you're learning, it's actually building your VSL for you. So when you're through, you push a button and out comes the PowerPoint or Keynote file that you need to use to record the video sales letter. So it's a very unique system. It's one that has more social proof behind it than almost, I mean, very few products have the level of social proof that we have. Literally hundreds of testimonials on on that page. And so anyway, what we're doing for this week only is we're offering the $397 walk-in special, to where you can do your first month for $397. If you like it after that, you can continue on. It's an 8-pay system where it's 8 payments at $397. And at the same time, here's the big whoa, we still give you your one-on-one coach. So that actually costs us, as you can probably gather, that costs us money. So I'm willing to take a chance on your success because I know how strong and how powerful the system's going to be, especially with you're given a marketing coach. So it's like you don't just get the accelerator, you get the accelerator marketing coach to help you walk, not only walk, they're not copywriters, but they help you walk through and implement the stuff in your business. So I don't need to give you a copywriter because accelerator is your copywriter. What I need to give you is people that will make sure that you follow through on it, because as John will probably tell you, I can give you the best product in the world, and if you're like me, honestly, sometimes I will buy a product and I'll sit around for several weeks. You know, it can collect dust. It can become a lampstand. It can become like what you prop your feet up on at night. Wow, I bought this product 4 years ago from Amazon. I have no idea what it is. And I don't want that to happen. So we created the software that really walks you through it, and then we went one step further. We actually implemented coaches, so people will actually call you and go, "Let's do this." Okay, and so yeah, it's a $3,000 course. You can actually pay in full if you want for $29.97 as well. It's up to you. You'll save money if you do that. But I wanted to give a low-dollar entry point so that you could get in and test it out. So that's to the right of the page, and it's as much of a no-brainer as it will ever get. We're not doing this. I've already made up the mind not doing this forever. And it's been the accelerator's never been sold for less than $2,000, $1997. It's $29.97 now because we offer far more benefits, far more things inside accelerator and the coaching. So that's the deal. It's as good as it's ever going to get. And I think John will tell you. John, how much do you normally charge to create a sales page for somebody? Just if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm not doing it a lot anymore, but $30K is a nice starting point. So
yeah. So it's between as I said originally, it's a $30,000 to $50,000 proposition that we're talking about here. And when you take the two of those zeros off, you really gotta wonder what the hell you're thinking if you don't take advantage of that, you know. So yeah, it's a pretty good, I say it's a pretty good deal. It's a freaking awesome deal, and it's the only software and course combined out there that teaches you the psychology of everything that you need to know. All the psychology that John and I have been talking about is buried in here, and that basically you can watch the videos for every single slide that you go through. Click a button, choose the copy that I've already pre-written for you, edit that copy to your personal liking, because as long as you follow the formula, it's not that big of a deal to edit. In fact, we encourage you to edit and create copy and teach you how inside the program, and then you come up with your own awesome VSL. It's beautiful. So there you go. There's the simple answer for that question. So
I know. So just click. You see right here next to the video. This will transform all the assets that you already have that are not generating any money for you in a few weeks. Yesterday, if you watch what we did yesterday, you know, less than less than a month, right? And plus, if you watched yesterday's hangout, you will see people who said that they have made back all the money they invested in the VSL in just 2 weeks, actual cash in their pockets. So go ahead, do that now. And I think, John, we should answer the question because the comments are coming in, and I don't want people to forget that before we start taking questions from people here in the hangout. What do you think?
Cool.
Okay, so guys, the answer to what is a sales, what is a benefit, most people said B, like the B, like the BZB.
And you are correct. And you are correct. But I want to emphasize a couple of words. A customer-focused statement, first of all. In other words, you're not bragging about your product. You're bragging about what your product is going to do for the customer. And it doesn't even have to be your product. You never even have to mention it. You can just say, this system or this process will, a process that effortlessly relieves X amount of pain while giving X amount of pleasure. I mean, that's a poorly written benefit, but you get the idea. And psychology is always about relieving pain or gaining pleasure, always. And it's their pleasure and their pain. It's not about how great your product is. No one gives a damn. They don't. They only care about what it can do for them. So that's why, like, A is so bad. Okay, explains why your product or service is superior. No one cares. Save that for the very last. Okay? Or if you have like some sort of a patented trademark software, it's the only software in the world that does blank. No one still cares. Like Accelerator is the only software in the world that does what it does. No one cares. Notice I haven't talked about that, because I'll talk about it in the sense that no one cares. No one cares. They care about what the hell will this do for my business. So I phrase it in the way that it is. It's that you go through this course will allow you to click, 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 go, and create your VSL as you go with minimal effort so that you can get through it faster. I mean, that's really why we did it, right? It doesn't matter that it's the only software out there that does it. You know, I mean, we can say that as a closing point. Oh, by the way, you can't find this anywhere else. But even that's more of a scarcity tactic. It's not a benefit tactic. So let's take on some questions, folks. Let's get some people on to hang out with JC.
Okay, so who wants to go first, guys? Raise your hand. Tom? Tom. Can you see unmute?
Hello, I am unmuted. Am I not?
Yes, you are. Go for it.
So I had hello, John.
Hi,
John. So I have sort of a technical question. We have one of the best long form letter guys on the planet and one of the best VSL guys. So this question becomes relevant. What's the wisdom lately on whether the letter needs to be there anyway on top of the VSL? So on the one hand, you have VSL only, order by hearing letter, or VSL and then sales letter to accompany it.
I can take that one, and then John can, if that's okay, John.
Sure.
All right. So we've tested this ad nauseum. So I can tell you flat out, most cases, and there's the exception for that. Old School New Body is one of the exceptions to that. I never even wrote a VSL for that. I wrote the text page for Old School New Body, and I did a new format. This created the whole article lander format back in 2012. That was we drove questions, targeted questions that psychologically embed the answers that people would need to say yes to in order to buy the product on the next page. But it was also a content-rich piece that we could send traffic to. So that ended up making, that's part of my $5 million sales letter training course, because that letter made $5 million right out of the gate. So we decided, wow, let's just not touch this thing, because I was like, why is this working, right? But now we're coming out with a VSL this year for it to run against it. My suspicion is the VSL will beat it. But I started there and it's like, wow, so long form copy still works, because of course I was kind of out of that game for a long time. That being said, most of the time what's been working is sending people either to a VSL or to a copy-driven pre-front page if you're running traffic like from Facebook or Google, and then directly to a VSL. And then when they window out of the VSL, if they do, you can send them directly to the same copy, slightly reworded, inside what you can deem as an article page. And then you just reverse the psychology. So if you're collecting lists, you would send someone directly to a sales page and then exit out and say, would you like to watch a video presentation of this? I'm a firm believer in using both long form and video sales letters, but when pressed to the head and when said we just have to get something out, most of our stuff has just a video sales letter unless it has to be Google compliant. And that's the last thing I want to say. If it has to be Google compliant, then you need a text-based sales letter underneath your video sales letter. So that's what's working right now in most industries. John, do you have some feedback? Oh, we lost John.
John, unmute. Guys, please don't click on anything.
John, one second.
Am I back on?
You were back on. You were back. Oh, you were gone. You back? Can you unmute?
No, he has to do it.
Hey, John, can you unmute?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, now I'm back.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I deal with a lot of different entrepreneurs in different markets, so I'm constantly asking them what's working for them, and they pretty much support what John said. Depending on the market, and so there's probably three things it depends on. One is the market. What traditionally has the market been responding to? Long form copy, written text, just VSLs plus the text, or VSLs with a option to go to a written page. And the guys that test a lot, find that usually the VSL wins right now, but you can train your people to read. You can actually, if my peeps on my list have come in through the written text mostly, so they tend to be older anyway because the young guys think I'm way too old to learn anything from. So it's like the learning style. It's like what you've been trained by the guy running the thing. If it is a personality-driven product or a website or whatever. So the problem, of course, with the printed page is the skimming that people do. If you can stop them from skimming, then you've solved a lot of that problem. As JB found out, one of the easiest ways to do that is control the output of information instead of letting them read it for them, put it on a VSL, and then they're kind of on a track that you want them to be on. They can't skim in a VSL. However, if you have other ways of delivering the information in a written page, and I have a lot of clients who still rely on the written page mostly, it's just you better be knowing that you're dealing with people who want to skim, who want to bounce around, and you have to find ways to control it. And there's ways to do that. In the old, Dan Kennedy writes his VSLs. I just found this out when I was chatting with him down in Florida a couple of months ago. He still uses his infomercial routine, which is basically, and he was instrumental. Both he and I were early in the infomercial world and on TV, and he's one of the guys who first found out to put in an hour-long video, which essentially is what an infomercial is. They're chunks of 3 to 7 minutes that then repeat, and they put up a blue screen at the end of every chunk of time. So the blue screen being the buy now, get to the information, call this number now, or whatever. So if you watch an infomercial all the way through, you will see they are in short chunks, almost like little chapters, but they're often dealing with the same subject matter. Sometimes they'll repeat the same chunk over and over again because they know that people don't routinely arrive at the TV station at the same time. They may catch the last 10 minutes, they may catch the middle 10, whatever. And he found that people had to watch an infomercial like 7 to 12 times before they'd actually buy. So it's like it didn't matter if you essentially skimmed in that. So he's using his VSLs the same way. He does short chunks, and then he has like a buy thing, and that's working for him. Of course, he's trained his audience. I don't know how much he uses that for outside entrepreneurs. I think he does, and it tends to work. What JB has done is codified this to an exact formula. So the VSLs that Jon talks about are much more tailored to the modern audience, and certainly to if any market has responded to a VSL that is in the formula that Jon uses, I wouldn't vary from that at all. I would just find out what worked before and follow that. When you deal with weird markets where people do actually read, I don't get it myself. I don't like audio. I don't listen to audiobooks. I do a podcast, but I don't listen to other podcasts. I can't stand it. I need to skim. I'm old school, and I like to write. So you're not going to catch me with a VSL, for example. I get very impatient about them. There's probably me and 5 other people left on the planet who learn that way. We're a dying breed, and visuals work really well. One of the things that marketers were waiting for with bated breath back in 2004, when the web really started getting going, because you could have the big holdup was merchant accounts, was being able to, PayPal kind of solved that, and then what we were waiting for with bated breath was more chances to use video, for people to be able to not have to wait for the video to download, for faster transmission time. So the vehicle was written. Now the vehicle should take full use of everything the web has to offer, which is every sense short of smelling and touch. And we're gonna take care of that pretty soon too.
Probably so. Yeah, probably so. And so smell-o-vision coming to a theater near you.
I was a kid in the 50s. I was going to all those horror movies and stuff, and I went to a smell-o-vision. They had a scratch and sniff thing they handed out to every moviegoer, and on the screen they would have it was 3D too, so you're wearing these glasses and you got this card, and then they'd have a rose, and they'd go, and the guy would look right at you in the camera and put the rose forward, and they just used to find rose on the card. You scratch it and sniff, and it all smelled like plastic, dog do souvenir.
They were talking about that.
The fad that never lasted. Yeah.
It lasted for one movie. So.
They were talking about that as for commercials, like you put that in the house and the TV is on and a burger commercial comes on, and then there's the scent thing, right, that starts making the house smell like burgers, and you're like, I want a burger.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because what guys like John and I do is we try to now I have a degree in psychology that predates NLP, but one of the things I like about NLP is the way you bring up sensory memories. Mm-hmm. So you can actually start to describe, or you don't even need a lot of copy to do it, but you can bring up sensory memories in people. Remember how it smelled when whatever. Remember that fragrance when whatever. And if you understand the psychology of how people think, they'll tap into their own thing. So I don't need to be reminded of what a burger smells like by actual smells. The smell triggers memory. We can skip that with good copy and go straight to the memory of a burger. Remember the last In-N-Out burger you had with a good friend where it was just absolute heaven and everything else in the world drifted away, and that kind of stuff. And then they're going to bring it up themselves. So you try to engage all 5 or however many senses there are just 5, right? And then the 6th sense would be like I see dead people, right? But you want to engage all of that, but don't get lazy about it. One of the things that when video started becoming a usable, viable means of marketing stuff online, because transmission rates and you weren't waiting for the video to come up and everything. People got, you still can't be lazy with it. You can't just slap a video up and expect that to do anything. You got somebody coming in your door, Tom.
Somebody breaking in.
It's like we see the man behind the curtain.
Hope not.
So anyway, I could go on forever about that, but you just because video, there were actually people who sold back when just because they were online. They had a page online. It was so unique and it was so great, and then that don't work anymore. And then people had a video. It was so unique and it was so great. And they were selling. And then, I deal with a lot of marketers who came on. They were the only one in the market, and it didn't matter how well they sold. And then they woke up one day and there were 50 competitors giving away what they used to sell. And suddenly the paradigm changes and the model changes, and you got to change or die. Yeah. So, video, I don't think smelling and, although touch, I don't know, most of the advances online are driven by the military and porn. So we'll see how they handle the new wave of technology coming down the pike when NASA releases its latest discoveries on how to best use the web. So I can't wait. That's the only thing keeping me alive, is I can't believe we live in the world we live in anyway. We're just in a rest stop right now, waiting for the next payload of stunning, amazing stuff to come after our brains. So.
Well, yeah, wait till the HoloLens is released.
Or just straight plug-ins into our head, we laugh about that. We're already doing it. They're doing brain stuff.
Yeah, and you guys, you're still going to need copy. I mean, I hate to say, you're still going to need words. It's like no matter how you get around this, so let me address this and we go to the next question. People ask me, do video sales letters still work? I said, has human psychology changed since the last time I looked? Because as far as I know, it hasn't. So what works is not video sales letters. What works is really good copy in a video sales letter format. So that's what Accelerator does better than anything, because it's already proven. It's already proven over $1 billion. So you have the formula inside of there, really good copy. And that's going to be the same whether you plug something into your brain in the future or you're watching live action video like Andy Jenkins does a lot of live video. It's still words, and there's very few things that can sell without the power of words. And that's true of infomercials. It's true of anything.
Yeah, John, let me just jump in and back that up. The things that will help you become a better marketer, a better entrepreneur, a better writer, a better everything, are the things you learn that are not part of the default equipment in human minds. And that includes the ability to sell, the ability to break down problems and solve them. Just take your average really good writer / consultant and figure out what they do that commands the big bucks and makes them worth listening to or following. Or if you come up with a formula, why should I follow it? It's because you know what's going on. Almost everything you're describing is the stuff that I, as a consumer, do not naturally have. Being able to write well, being able to sell, being able to communicate, persuade, all of this stuff is not part of the default equipment. It's actually there, but it's like, imagine a muscle that's never been exercised, that's never been used. It's not just flabby, it's in decline until you start to kick it in.
Yeah. So I'll say this, then we'll move on to the next question, because I want to bring other people on. But I had knee surgery. It's been about 10 weeks now, and when I first looked at my left knee after the surgery, there was no cast on it. It was ortho, and I looked down, and my left leg, and I'm a bodybuilder, so my left leg looked literally like this big around. I was like, it scared the crap out of me, because I was like, holy shit, that's what normal leg looks like. It's like, but it literally was like, I had like skin hanging off of the muscles gone. I'm thinking, wow. So this.
And that was after what, a month?
Yeah, it was like, well, it's crazy. I mean, just the catabolic nature of what happened and what they had to do, the huge rise in catabolic hormones just ate muscle tissue away. And so right before the call, I'm literally have electrostim on my leg. I still have the pads on, and I'm firing off that muscle left and right, and of course it's coming back now. But the point is that that's the same thing with a writing. You have a writing muscle. You have a persuasion muscle. Most people's persuasion muscles are flabby and they just simply don't work. And this muscle would not fire as much as I wanted it to. And after 30 years of weight training, I could not get this. This is called the vastus medialis. I could not get that muscle to fire off, no matter how hard I tried. And so I literally had to plug a machine into my leg to get it to fire off. And now I've retrained it. So think of it this way. A formula or a software like Accelerator, which is both, by the way, a formula and software, is the machine that fires that muscle off. And eventually you can start firing it off on your own, and that's awesome, but most people have no clue how to use that muscle. And that's what we do as persuasion experts. So, Yvette, want to bring on our next caller?
Yes, actually, guys, if you have any questions here, raise your hand. I'll see it. You'll be the next ones. I want to take a question from the comments. Linda Warner is asking, can VSLs be used to test interest in a product that has not yet been created or partially created to see if there is a market for it?
Yes.
If so, I know. If so, watch yesterday.
Okay.
If so, how would you recommend setting it up? VSL to landing page with opt into the cart. Thanks. Loving this, John. There you go. Take it away.
So, yeah, like we've said if you look at the hangathon that we did, the 10-day hangathon, I actually have a whole hangathon that says, get paid to create your product and use a video sales letter to sell it. So many times we will do this. What we're talking about with just the hangout with you and Andrea, you're going to be selling a product before it ever technically exists. But that's a very, very common way of doing it, to test the market interest. For doing something like that, if you're just trying to test market interest in like a specific kind of product or service or a name of something, then you can create something very short, even like a PPC links or Facebook links, and throw them, or a survey, make it really simple like that. But if you really want to test the nature of the product, the best way to do that, create your VSL and then invite people onto a live webinar or a hangout and present it that way. Like, so you educate them, and then you can pitch that at the end of that, and then you have your product. And then once that's done, you can create the video. You take the same video sales letter that drove them there and just add the pitch to the end of it. So that's what we do. I teach that as a strategy all the time, because I don't think there's any reason why someone should not get paid to create their own products. So inside Accelerator, there's a course called the 28-Day Product Creation Formula that teaches you exactly how to do this, how I've been paid to create virtually every product that I've created over the past 4 or 5 years. So do check that out. Check that out. That's worth the cost of the program.
That's really. Okay, so our next one is Jim Huggle. I believe you have a question. Yes.
No, I don't have any questions right now.
Okay. Daniel?
Someone should not get
paid. Someone is making a noise.
So
inside Accelerator, there's a course called the 28 Days.
Daniel,
Can you mute yourself?
noise? No. Okay. So we are, guys, if you don't have really questions, then let other people who do have questions jump into the Hangout and speak with Jon, because this opportunity to speak with Jon Carlton and Jon Benson at the same time, I think heaven is, or hell is freezing over right now. So a different question from Carlos Mesa in the comments. They're coming in the comments for some reason. Can you link to the copy under the VSL and be Google compliant? Like, click here to read this presentation.
No. Let me think about this. Google right now, at least for most offers, requires you to have the VSL and then kind of underneath it a sales page. So it would be nice to do that, but probably not. I can't say that we've tested that. I know other people who have, and they didn't get it to work. But it's hard to say. It really depends on the industry. If it's any of the industries that Google hates, which is all the industries that actually sell, yeah, Google just does not like people selling things on Google. That's how they make all their money. But never mind. Yeah, so that's what you want to make sure that, like, for example, weight loss. So we have an offer on Google right now. It gets a lot of traffic, and underneath it is a full sales page. And guess what? That will hurt your conversions. VSLs alone crush a VSL with a sales page underneath it. Just does. But if the VSL is good enough and the copy underneath is good enough, which is, of course, that's what we want you to help you do, then your conversions will be good enough. So it's a good enough process.
Awesome. Okay, so then the next one is Drew. You were here before. Let me unmute you.
There we go.
Yay. Go for it.
Hey there. So I have some marketing clients. I do websites. I'm trying to wrap some things up, but we still have to launch these projects. But what's good is I get in there, and I in my question there, I'm trying to flex and build my persuasion muscles here with all the 3X tips and tricks and the products and everything. Everything's valuable. So, but do you have any tips on the home page? Because what I think I found myself doing was digging in, and I've done some persona research, a couple persona interviews and calls, and got all that boiled down. I know their pain points, and I'm painting this picture down the home page. And then at some point I stop and go, wait a second, this is a home page. I gotta keep in mind that the business is on a home page. We want a little bit of overview. You know, start to say, hey, here's your nightmare, here's your pain points. You're going to get texted on the weekends and 3 in the morning. You want that to stop happening. My client is your answer. But we also offer free shipping and, you know, all these other things. So anyway, any insight, because that's kind of in the here and now in the boat that I'm in that I got to write for.
Jon, you got some answers for that. What I think I hear you saying is,
Am I on?
Yep.
Okay, good. It's industry and market specific. I'm always grilling a lot of guys, and I am lucky enough in the mastermind I host that I have a lot of guys that test the bejesus out of everything. So things change, and things change regarding the market and the person you're after. I personally like to not follow certain formulas for putting especially a landing page or a home page together. If I have any problems when I'm putting stuff together and I feel I have to put more information in than maybe I'm comfortable with, or I think I'm overloading the viewer, or I'm playing with keeping the prospect or having him, because everybody's got their finger poised over their mouse and they're ready to click away as soon as you piss them off or overwhelm them or just confuse them. You can use copy to get around so much stuff. And I like to box things up, which makes my pages kind of, if you go over to my blog, it's like there's 2 main columns. 2 columns are for the copy of the main article, but I got a lot of stuff on the right-hand column, and I've always done that. I had one of the first working marketing web pages way back when I didn't have any idea what I was doing, but I knew that I didn't want to overwhelm people, so I wanted to give them the options to see certain things, to click and go other places. I was violating all kinds of rules that people have set down now as the formula. So I think it's a constantly changing medium, but you've got to get in the head of the person looking at it and figure out what is most important to them, what can give them access to information without offending them, confusing them, or making them go somewhere else. And one of the easiest answers to all this is copy. Explain what you're doing, you know.
Yeah.
I like 3 things. Give them, you know, just start out with 3 things. Here's 3 things to do right now. If this is your first time to your page, I recommend you do blank, blank, and blank. If you've already been here, then you can skip all this and go blah blah. And, you know, make sure that you watch this video, whatever. Here's some information on something else. Just, you know, it's the navigation that screws people up. They're not, you know, eye studies were a big deal back in the 2005, 2006. That German company that was tracking where people were actually looking on the page, and they have like little heat maps of where the eyes were wandering and stuff. That kind of translated into making better pages, but it also, you know, it was a passive way of looking where, you know, of looking where people's eyes were going. You know, that's pretty detailed. And I think if you have that equipment, you can test that thoroughly, then fine, use it. You want all the data you can. But if it's just you trying to figure out how humans are using this, you know, often you're the guide, you're the translator to this new world. You've let people into this new world. Now, what do I do next? And don't tell me what the next 6 things are I got to do. Just tell me what the next thing I should do is, and then the next thing, and then the next. And that's one of the beauty of VSLs, of course, John, is you're controlling the flow of information. It's not left up to the person. You are absolutely in control, and you are the ringleader bringing them through. Some people, like I said before, don't operate that way. They like to have a little bit of control or the illusion of control. So you do that with copy. If you say, you know, there's 5, you know, as you can see, there's 15 optional things you can do on this page. That's way too much for most people. Here's what I recommend. And then there's a lot of ways you can do it. Just be that guy, that ringleader who is taking control of the situation, making everything just drop dead simple, and breaking down what is a problem. Too much information on the page, break it down.
Yeah. I want to. Yafat, do you see my screen right now?
Yes, I do.
Okay. If everyone goes to this, don't close your browser. Open a new browser window or a new tab, and go to accelerator.com/VIP. Accelerator.com/VIP. I just want to show you what I did for our own interface site. So I call this an interface site. This is not a hardcore sales page site. We have one of those. We have a video sales letter. We have all the tools, right? But this is our present site, if our interface site. What people might find if they search for accelerator.com, and it's more of the pretty side. It's completely responsive. But I want to show you just a couple of sections that I think is the most important. Right off the bat, we show them a demo that they can play. Notice the button is right underneath it, so that will literally mouse down to order if they know they want to order. The very first thing we did is put all of our major testimonials right underneath here. These are all pros. And then you'll freak out when I show you the rest of this stuff. So then we break the copy into chunks, just little chunks like this. You know, like I always come up like what John was saying, word money that goes where you go. Okay, so we wanted to say Accelerator can be used on your iPhone, but rather than saying that, I just came up with the phrase word money, which is kind of fun, right? We have the benefits, you know, the $1 billion formula, click and save, copy, proven to work, instance, you know, all this kind of. So this is just a very traditional looking sales page, but the copy on this page, you should analyze it because it's all written in direct response style, even though it's not a direct response letter. So we get into all the bonuses, and we get into all these testimonials. We literally have hundreds of testimonials, so I had to create a way to show hundreds. So we literally just took screen captures because I believe screen captures are much more realistic than just saying, hey, here's what I'm doing, even though all our testimonials are real. But I like this. And then we have our nifty little package that you can sign up for now. But we went a little step further. I created all these videos. Look at these are all videos of people. No one's been paid to do this. And we had to create a playlist because they got so big. And we always end with questions and answers. I really recommend if you're doing a straightforward sales page that you end in questions and answers, because look at what we get to do right here. I get to pull all the stops out. Somebody asked this question a while ago. So I'm just going to read this real briefly, then we're going to go into the next caller. John, this sounds fantastic, but it's really a lot of money. And then I literally cut off the sentence on purpose. So I just told them to stop right there, think about what you're saying. That's NLP, by the way. I'm using NLP. And I'm literally making fun of the answer. I'm literally telling them that that's a really silly question. So, and but I'm doing it in a fun way. It's like, you know, so I talk about a Ford Pinto and a Ferrari. You know, the low dollar knockoffs are shooting peas with a pea shooter. You know, I have my finger on the nuclear bomb. I mean, so it's like it's more fun that way, right? And so this is how we decided to do it. And always in, by the way, we've tested this. If you have a traditional sales page, picture signature works a lot better than anything else. So yeah, very simple, very straightforward. This is not our hardcore sales page, but it works because it uses a lot of the same copy elements that we use in direct response. So I'm going to kill my screen share now. I hope that was helpful.
That was great. And actually, I'm getting in the comments that people are saying that this is the best Hangout yet. Jon Carlton is killing it.
Cool.
So, yeah, this is really awesome.
Awesome. Next question.
Yeah, Daniel.
Daniel.
I'm on.
Yeah, hold on. A lot of people are coming in, so if you get your question answered, please drop off. Let other people come in.
Yeah, and so we'll make if you can, let's keep the questions to real short, like 30 seconds, because I want to get through like 4 or 5 more questions before we leave.
No problem. Can you hear me? This is Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, hey John, and nice to meet you, John. I have a question about the languaging and the sensory memory topic that you brought up before. I'm wondering whether there are senses that are perhaps more dominant or more prevalent among men versus women. And or across or within other cultures.
This is a, I'm not muted, right?
Nope.
This is a new study ongoing in behavioral psychology, and basically everything that I got my psychology degree back in the 70s. I was in college during the classic rock period and the sexual revolution. It was a great time. I'm amazed I survived. But basically, everything I learned in that academic setting has been proven wrong or just fell off the face of the planet. Nothing that I learned in psychology back then has withstood the test of time. I think anybody that graduated with a psych degree in 2002 is sitting here thinking, wait a minute, everything that I learned is wrong. And what these huge leaps in the way people study things and what we're finding out. I think one of the more exciting things right now is brain chemistry study. They are mapping the brain, finding out what fires off when people look at things. But they're getting into the weeds. They're finding out how colorblind people perceive things differently in the visual cortex than non-colorblind people. And it's like there's too much data. They don't know what to do with it. So the academics and the scientists are researching this stuff, but the data needs to be interpreted. So basically, go back to the door-to-door salesman guys who don't understand, who may not be able to name all 5 senses, who certainly have never seen a brain map, but they know the experiential value of dealing with humans, which humans will never change, by the way. A lot of people think that because we're online and we're doing all this fancy stuff, that somehow we're a step above where humans were before, and that's easy to do. I certainly did it in my life. It's like I don't know. We look down on people who are less technologically advanced. We're still just cavemen with one foot still in the jungle. I mean, half of what we do during the day is jungle-oriented behavior. It's alpha male. It's seeking better resources. It's hoarding resources. It's there's a lot of selfishness. There's a lot of greed and fear going on. Things like that. When you understand that kind of stuff, the details start to wane a bit. So worrying about what men, if men are more visually oriented than women, and if women are more, emotional than men, things like that, to a degree, that's probably true. But what's more important is what your prospects in your market are doing. Because I talk to a lot of clients who think they're writing to a 70% male market, and they find out after doing a little testing or a little data sourcing that their list is 50% male, 50% female, and they're stunned by this. And that's good information to have, but they've been selling up to that point, treating, thinking they're talking to a largely male, dominated audience, and they're not. And so there's a lot of startling stuff that comes out. That's what makes us all very fun and very interesting. So testing is great. Learning how to interpret what the data that you get is much more important. And at the end of the day, you have to have a feeling, a sense of you and one other person at a time sitting down and actually going through this stuff, whether it's a VSL, whether it's a sales letter, whether it's an entire launch. At the end of the day, it's just you and one person, and then you successfully pull it off, and then you multiply it. So, you know, it's hard to write one letter to both men and women. If you can start to break down certain audiences, like you've got a rich and a poor section of your list, maybe you do want to send different emails and stuff to the rich part of the list and different set to the poor part, because they're dealing with different cognitive issues in their lives. But then again, maybe not. Maybe you can counter that with one line of copy. It doesn't matter if you're rich, you know, you're filthy rich or you're filthy poor. It doesn't matter, and then go on to that. So, but you have to understand that that's what you're dealing with first. Once, you know, you give a copywriter a list of what is known about their audience, and it's game over. So.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much. Did that answer it, Daniel?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, John.
Sure.
Awesome. So then, Juan, you're next.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we got you on.
Wow. This
Do
is
your
so
line,
amazing.
Ron.
Awesome. I'm calling from Chile. Hi, John and Jifat. It's so cool to be able to. Hola, hola. This is so
Hola,
cool.
¿cómo está?
Oh, muy bien. Thank you. All right, so I'm a clinical psychologist, and I work with adults with ADHD, and I have been selling an online training course for them in which I teach them how to overcome ADHD by using mindfulness and techniques from cognitive behavioral therapy. And I've been doing this for 1.5 years, but my results aren't that great. So I'm thinking that maybe it has to do with my VSLs. You know, I have been doing like PLF style launches and webinars and all of that. And for some reason, I have Wistia, so I can tell when they stop watching the VSL. And some of them don't watch it all, you know. So, and I wanted to ask, do you think in my case that I'm not selling something to make money online? It's more like, you know, trying to help them, and it's more like what they call heart-centered and all of that. And would it be better for me to use a VSL in which I am in front of the camera, or would it be better for me to use a traditional VSL, like you know, only text?
John, you're probably going to tackle that, but before you get into that, I would guess offhand that you're having feature heavy sales pitches, and you need to get more to benefit heavy. It shouldn't matter what your degree is or what the academic name of the stuff you does, and none of that really matters when it comes down to it. People have problems, and you either have a track record or you have a special way to solve those problems, and that's where you have to begin and end. And they should, you know, it could be halfway through the pitch where they're actually being sold, where you say, by the way, I'm a certified registered psychologist, you know, studied all this, and they should go, wow, really? Wow, I was ready to go with you. I thought you were right off the street. So being able to sell the stuff, you need to get inside their head and what their fears and their angst is all about, and start to solve this stuff before you start tossing out your pedigree, your credibility, all of that. You know, a lot of the credibility, especially when you're dealing with the things people can't see, like their emotions and their cognitive abilities, and a lot of the things where it's not fixing a tire on the car, it's fixing their mindset. When you're doing that, they're completely out of their comfort zone. They don't know what's going on, so they're looking for somebody to trust. And they're not going to trust you because you have a degree. They're not going to trust you even necessarily because you've had a degree and a business for 30 years doing this. They're going to start to trust you because of how you communicate to them, specifically how you're going to solve their problem. They don't care that you are, you know, that you are used in the highest levels of government to help people get ready to present in front of the UN or what. They don't care about that. What they care about is you've taken people who are in their situation and moved them through that. And it can still be mysterious until you actually sell it, but you got to bring it down to their level.
I have to ask though, Juan, do you own the accelerator? Do you own a copy, or do
No, but I'm very interested. I'm very interested. Yeah, I'm a hobbyist right now.
One, 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 one.
But that's why I was asking, because he said the VSLs weren't working for him, and I was like, did you use the system, the formula? So that's why.
Yeah, it's so yeah, that's going to totally help you. But another thing, Juan, as far as when you do get into Accelerator, you'll notice that there's multiple pattern interrupts that we use in the first 3 to 5 slides. I sincerely believe that you should test you on live video going directly into text. So we use that for Mike Chang, for example, for Six Pack Shortcuts. They have a very huge fitness business online, and he uses almost all live video because they're talking about a fitness product. On the other hand, I'm finally getting them to test just slides, and we're running a slide test right now against a video test, and not for him, but for another person, and the slides are winning. So I really think that you need to look at, number one, how you're presenting it. John was dead on. It's like no one cares about that stuff. They care about, you want to get, if you follow the formula, see what I'm talking about. You won't even mention any of this stuff until like literally a couple of minutes at best into the VSL, and then it's going to be what I call a very modest introduction. You know, where you will say something to the effect of, you know, I didn't exactly start my life off planning to be, you know, an expert in the field of cognitive psychology, and certainly never expected to have I'm making these numbers up, so bear with me because I don't know the numbers, you know, thousands and thousands upon customers of people that I was able to change their lives. No, I actually started off being pretty confused myself, and I tell you just a brief story, and then all of a sudden you're into a storytelling element, and that's kind of how we do things inside the 3X formula. So I'd love to talk to you more about that, but dig in. You'll love it, trust me. And we have quite a few psychologists in there. My background is my minor was in psychology, but I studied NLP extensively. So a lot of cognitive behavior stuff that's wrapped in NLP, as you know. And I certainly don't pretend to be a psychologist, but thank you very much, Juan. And it's great to see you from Chile. I know I only know a few words in Spanish. Hola and ¿cómo está? And tú eres muy bonito. But that doesn't apply to you, man.
Okay. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
So then let's take one more, if we have the time. It's kind of like 2 questions combined into one. Do we have time?
We have time.
Okay, so Bahimi is asking, so these 2 questions, I'm combining them because I think it's kind of like the same thing. Bahimi is saying, how long do you run a VSL typically if you are selling products rather than a webinar event? How many versions do you do on the same product offer? And then the other one is kind of like similar. John is asking, my question for Jon Carlton. John, I bought and I read somewhere that you don't believe in pacing in NLP terms. When you write, since you feel that the reader already knows what they're experiencing, many writers swear by pacing as a powerful way to build rapport. So it's kind of like, where do you start NLP? What's the pace? What's the length?
So you're asking me?
Yeah, it must be, because I mean, I certainly never said that. So.
Well, I have not studied NLP. Like I said, my psychology education predates NLP. I have a layman's understanding of NLP, and because I got halfway into looking at it, and I've hung out with a lot of NLP teachers, and I realized, I mean, not to denigrate it, but I'd already figured all that stuff out previously. I just didn't name it the same way. I love NLP. I think it's great because it has words like framing, and which was very hard to describe before the word framing actually came out. Now that's used. So I'm not clear on pacing and stuff. For me, I haven't really broken it down too much. For me, it's just a conversation. And I think I'm answering this guy's question. Basically, if you want to figure out lengths and things like that, the way I used to describe the length of a sales letter or the length of a VSL is you start at the beginning of your sales pitch, you work through everything you've got to work through, you say everything you need to say to persuade and get the sale done. Then when you're done, you sit back, you say, how long did it take me? Was it 20 pages, 2 pages? Was it a 30-second video? Was it a 3-hour video? It's like let the sales process air itself out. Now that's when you understand salesmanship, which is much more important than knowing the details of a formula. However, the way John has worked things out, you really can go in kind of blind, not understand it, and still get it done, which is the beauty of what he's doing. A good formula should be able to take a rookie who has no clue what's going on, force him to do the right things, and later he can figure out why that worked. I come from the other side. I had to figure this out, being a writer and entrepreneur before any of this stuff was out there. So I had to figure it out. So that's why I keep coming back to the effectiveness of salesmanship, of understanding salesmanship at a fundamental level. If you've ever been married, if you've ever had a job through an interview, if you've ever done anything in your life, you've sold yourself. Most people don't understand that. So everybody sells. Most people suck at it. And if you want to become a professional, either an entrepreneur, a business owner, or a professional writer, you've got to understand it at a level where you understand what all the elements are. You can name all the elements. You understand what's going on, what the process is, and what's happening. Often, it's more complex to explain why a 3-sentence email worked than it is to just say, write this as a first sentence, write this as a second, write this as a third. You explain to somebody, they can do it, they kind of understand. Then the explanation of why that worked, the psychology behind it, the persuasion that was going on, the salesmanship essentially is often much more complex. And you don't actually need to know what's going on when you have a proven formula that you can use.
Right, and we do both, just for clarity's sake. Every single slide inside Accelerator has a 1 to 20 minute video, depending on how complicated it is, that says, here's the psychology behind why this works, and here's how you can manipulate it, manipulate the sentence, in other words, to make it your own. But I believe it's so important that we put in all those hours of videos to explain every single slide, because it is a course and a formula. And some people just go through and they click and point and they edit and they go, and they don't need to know why. But the reason why I wanted to give you 20 times more than that was because to understand the psychology of why will translate to your emails, translate to your blogs, translate to your sales pages, translate to everything that you do. That is salesmanship. So we have time for one more question. I know we got. It's under the name of Shopkins Lover, but it may be a different name. Can we?
Eric. Eric, you ready?
Eric.
Yeah, I'm here.
Go for it.
All right. Hey, thanks. John,
I love that hat, Eric.
Can you hear me?
I gotta tell you, I'm a Superman fanatic, so I love that hat. So, yeah.
I was at the Ryan Dice thing in San Diego, and first of all, I want to thank you, because the thing that I took away most in San Diego was the formula you have. And in fact, I've taken it and I've already edited it down for something I'm going to do. And I've been following this because I want to actually buy this. I've been waiting for the time to pull the trigger. And a couple questions I want to ask you. I'm working with Michael Chaney. You're probably familiar with him right now. He's a $1 million marketer. And I've always liked copy. And John, I've always admired you and your copy. And I have a question for John. The copy I put together, it took me probably a month to write. And it's a story.
You realize you're both named John, right?
Yeah.
John Carlton. Which John are you asking?
Yeah.
Oh, this one right here, John Carlton. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Because you're dealing with long form. This is a long form sales letter. Probably has 5,000 to 6,000 words in it. And it's graphically illustrated by a professional graphics artist. And it's just storytelling. You know, it starts out. You know, I was driving down the freeway. I was boxed in by these cars. And eventually, it comes into, you know, I lost my job because the boss called me while I was on the road. And then the reality of it sunk in. And then I was free. And obviously, my product was the savior at the end. Basically, it comes down to that. So Michael swears by the long-form sales letter for the internet marketing crowd still. And I learned a lot from it. I've been in sales and marketing. I've sold $2-3 million worth of vending equipment out in the real world, doing shows around the country. But copywriting, I've always been interested, never really understood it. So I learned a lot from Michael. And putting this copy together, he's approved it. He said, this is fantastic. What are your thoughts on the internet marketing crowd reading the long form? Because, see, that's all he does. And he says, don't worry, he's just typical white page, long form sales copy versus the VSLs, which I'm going to use in one aspect that John is talking about for the back-end product. But how do you feel about the long form copy still to this day? Are internet marketers more or less skimming it, or are they reading it, or what is the input on that?
Okay, this is to me, John?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, John Carlton.
Basically, it's pretty simple. Whether it's a direct mail letter, an infomercial, a VSL, or somebody standing in front of you, that's the vehicle for your message. So in the beginning, there is the message, and the message can be spoken, written, flashed on cue cards, or future just directly inputted into your brain. The reason we use stories and various ways of presenting the stuff is to more or less package the message, and then we put it into a vehicle, and the vehicle has to arrive at the prospect's area of cognition, which can be in his lap, literally, if it's in a magazine, in the mail, on TV, interrupting what he was watching, or maybe it is what he's watching if it's delivered in the form of a movie or something, on YouTube, go to my sales page, go to my web page, get LinkedIn, when you pop onto your Reddit feed and everything. That's all just vehicle. People get caught up way too much in the nature of the vehicle. I would rather have a great. I used to describe it actually before the web. I would describe it as the difference between having a gold-plated business card handed to you from a salesman you never intend to call, versus Marilyn Monroe in her prime scrawling her phone number on the back of a wet bar napkin in lipstick. Which one is more valuable? You could melt down the solid gold card and get whatever, an ounce of gold is worth from that. But if what you want is Marilyn's number, it doesn't matter how it's delivered. It's the information that's much more important.
Yeah. After
that, you want, then you realize, then let's make the vehicle as good as it can be. Let's take care of that. The old breakdown of marketing was the list was worth 70% of the success. The offer was worth 25%, and the copy was worth 5%. The old formula is always, it's not denigrating copy. It's just copy is less important than the right message to the right, or excuse me, the right market getting the right offer. Because brilliant copy can't sell a bad offer. You may get people interested in it, but you're not going to close the deal. You can't sell stuff that's being offered for free elsewhere, for example, and things like that. But copy is mega important, but it's not as important as finding the right audience and getting that message to the person in a palatable form. This is all going way deep. Maybe I went down a rabbit hole here, but basically, just say your pitch, get it down into a form where you can sell one person, and then go out and find a way to get it to multiple people at once. And that's like, each ad you have is a tiny little salesman that you sent out into the world, armed with whatever points that you've given him, whatever the pitch is. And VSLs right now are great because you can actually you impersonate a human being, kind of. There's language going on, you've got visual stuff going on, and you're delivering the pitch in a nice on a nice silver platter directly to their brain. So, worrying about the vehicle too much is the wrong way to do it. Take the simplest approach possible and work mostly on the persuasion stuff that you put in there. So
right. And I'm going to jump in and say, not only do I wholeheartedly agree, and this is from the guy that created video sales letters, but what I've been saying all along. People ask me, why didn't you write a video sales letter for Old School New Body? We are, but the vehicle wasn't as important as understanding the persuasion and the language. So that's why it's essential, and I want to get this last thing over before we have to call it a day. It's essential that you don't fall for something that says, here, press a few buttons in this $40 piece of crap software and out pops a quote-unquote sales letter, because it doesn't work that way. you need to understand the psychology of persuasion and then relate that psychology to your audience. So that's what we help you do inside Accelerator and with the coaches that we use. So we use, the reason I have, rather than copywriting coaches, because you don't need them, we have marketing and implementation coaches that will help you go, wait, your positioning here is a little off. Let's tweak that positioning a little bit. And just from a couple of calls, people are making a lot more money because their positioning was off. So what John's saying, find the offer that works for you have a great offer to the right audience. At that point, I think if you're in a competitive field, copy is still crucial. I mean, I would because if people are selling it, if you probably are, if you're in a field where people are selling something important that people need, and it's something that the masses need, you're going to get into a competition-based market. So use very good copy. You need persuasion skills there. But just that's the most important thing. So if we've got to bring you on because I know we are over time, and I wish we could stick around for longer. But man, this has been awesome. I'd love to have Jon on for 3 hours if we had the time.
It's fabulous.
Are you with us? Thank you so much.
I am, yeah. So I know this is some kind of like super unique opportunity. I'm thrilled that so many people got the chance to actually pick both your brains, because look at the gems that came out of that. So guys, last day. Right there, to the right, there is your button that will get you started, get you with the coaches, all the information that you need, all the structure, all the Q&A, everything we talked about today. If there's any other questions in your mind, Warisa, put that in the comments. We are reading them, we will respond, and we hope to see you in our family. So thank you so much, Jon Carlton, Jon Benson, for being here. This was awesome.
Awesome, man.